East Asia Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Telly Edwards. Tonight's top stories from East Asia. Investigators are likely to proceed with an arrest warrant against impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol as early as today, while he has vowed to fight to the very end amid ongoing protests for and against him. The head of Jeju Air is banned from leaving South Korea as authorities raid the airline's offices as part of their probe into Sunday's fatal crash. U.S. officials accuse Chinese government hackers of breaching a sensitive office overseeing economic sanctions, claims that Beijing dismisses as baseless. And Chinese equities tumble, logging their weakest New Year start since 2016, weighed down by lingering worries of a weakening economy and potentially higher U.S. tariffs. Also in East Asia tonight, a high-profile investigation continues into an ex-small-town mayor, Alice Guo, accused of criminal links to China, while a nationwide ban on offshore gaming operations takes effect in the Philippines. And see what young Chinese workers are doing to escape the rat race, living out their dream lifestyle a few decades early. Rival protests in South Korea spill over into the new year amid a political crisis. Impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol's supporters are gathering outside his residence in a bid to protect him as he faces an unprecedented arrest over his martial law decree, which he imposed earlier last month. And you are looking at live pictures of the situation near President Yoon's residence in Seoul. Hundreds of his supporters crowded in a small area, along with heavy police presence there. President Yoon's earlier pledged to, quote, fight to the very end. As reports say, anti-corruption investigators are likely to execute an arrest warrant against him as early as today. Now, with the walls closing on him, the embattled leader, according to his lawyer, delivered a message to his supporters. He repeats his martial law justification, claiming that the country is in danger due to internal and external forces, as well as the activities of what he called anti-state elements. Addressing those rallying for him, he said, with them by his side, he will fight to protect the nation. Opposition lawmakers slammed Yoon's latest statement. They accuse the president of trying to incite clashes and a second insurrection, and calling Yoon, quote, delusional, and his message highly inappropriate. Well, Yoon is facing investigation on charges of insurrection for his short-lived martial law decree. His legal team has filed an injunction to block the arrest order, calling it unlawful and invalid. Earlier today, 2 new justices were inaugurated into the country's constitutional court, leaving one remaining vacancy in the 9-member panel. Well, acting President Chae Sang-mok says that he will appoint the 3rd justice to fill the spot, but only if both ruling and opposition parties agree on the candidate. The top court requires 6 justices to agree on the ouster of an impeached president. Now, the fate of impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol and the first acting president, Han Duck-soo, is at the hands of the court. The next hearing for Yoon is scheduled tomorrow. And for more, we are joined now by Baek-tae Jung. He's a professor of law and director of the Center for Korean Studies at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and he is speaking to us from Seoul. Well, thanks for joining us this evening, Professor. Now, we heard there that President Yoon, he has vowed to fight till the end, and he continuing to resist arrest. So, Professor, perhaps you could help us understand, what does this persistence signal about his strategy, and also how will this impact the ongoing investigations?
Currently, President Yoon and his legal team considers that the martial law declaration and all the subsequent activities led by President Yoon and his camp were legal and justified, and they are claiming that the reason for those martial law declaration and also the subsequent activities led by the National Assembly are against the law or not following the proper legal structure and also procedural law. Today, the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials is trying to execute the arrest warrant that was issued 3 days ago. And yesterday, the President Yoon actually encouraged his supporter to go against the legal arresting execution activities. And his legal team is protesting that the arrest warrant is issued illegally, or the procedure of the issuance of the arrest warrant was not correct, and also the contents of the arrest warrant is actually not valid, especially because of the mentioning of Criminal Procedure Law 110 and 111, which allows the Presidential Security Service not to allow search or seizure on presidential residence. And as you see, people in Korea, especially supporters of President Yoon, are currently occupying part of the entry point of Presidential Security Service, trying to stop the official execution of arrest warrant.
So, yeah, Professor, exactly picking up what you're saying, that Yoon's legal team, they're arguing that they don't have the case, to request this arrest warrant. As a law professor, how credible is this argument?
I don't think, first of all, they have any legal ground to protest against this lawful arrest warrant, because arrest warrant was issued legally by the coordination committee that are composed of police central investigation unit, and also the CIO, along with the military investigation unit. And it was issued by a prosecutor with the proper arrest warrant documentation. Even if they can argue that some of the contents of the arrest warrant is not valid, still they should follow the regular procedure. And later on, they may go against it by filing a proper claim again in the court. And it is not justified that they declare this is invalid, and also encourage even the people to launch this kind of obstruction of justice activities. And we are, people in Korea are worried, especially tonight, because there started to be some signs, started to show some sign of possible arrests and even possible clashes, because 2 people have already arrested because of the violation of the police order. And more things can come when the police start to execute the arrest warrant, which is being supposed to happening tomorrow morning.
So Professor, let's talk about the inauguration of the 2 new judges today. 8 of the 9 seats of the Constitutional Court are now filled. Can you give us a sense, with these 2 new justices, could that mean an increased chance of Yoon's impeachment being upheld?
Yeah, in my opinion, this impeachment case is a much easier case than other impeachment cases in the past in Korea, like against President Roh Moo-hyun or President Park Geun-hye, because there are plenty of evidence of a violation of a constitution and another law by the president. And therefore, even if the composition, the numbers of a constitutional court justices are not, full 9 people. However, there has been some worries about the initiation of a constitutional proceeding without having 7 constitutional court justices. So now that they have the constitutional court has 8 justices, the requirement to initiate the proceeding has met, and the decision should be upheld with the 6 constitutional court justices if they want to pass the impeachment agenda bill. And I think with these 2 additional justices, joining this constitutional court body, the probability of passing this impeachment bill in this trial procedure is higher than before, and the Constitutional Court is currently reviewing whether the acting president, vice prime minister's decision not to appoint one Constitutional Court justice is valid or not, and if the Constitutional Court come up with a decision to add one more Constitutional Court justice to make the whole 9-member panel in place, probably the impeachment proceeding will go more smoothly. And I guess that impeachment proceeding will eventually end up with the firing of the current President Yoon.
Well, we'll hear your insights loud and clear. Thank you so very much for your time and thoughts, Professor Baek Tae-young from University of Hawaii at Manoa. Now, staying in South Korea, police have raided Jeju Air's office as well as 2 other locations, including an aviation agency and Muan International Airport, where Sunday's deadly plane crash occurred. Well, Yonhap News Agency reports that Jeju Air CEO has been banned from leaving the country. Well, the crackdown comes as part of efforts to gather evidence related to the country's worst air disaster that killed 179 people. The South Korean Transport Ministry, along with U.S. officials, are leading a separate civil aviation probe into the crash. Investigators have recovered the plane's 2 black boxes believed to contain recordings of the pilot's communication during the flight's final 2 hours. Efforts to decode the data are ongoing, with one of them to be sent to the U.S. for further analysis. Around 700 family members visited the crash site on New Year's Day. Authorities say that 43 bodies are ready to be released, but added that it could still take several days until they are returned to their loved ones. CNA's Lim Yeon-suk has more.
Days after the deadly crash of a Jeju Air flight at Muan International Airport in South Cholla Province, the country continues to grieve for those who lost their lives in the tragedy. South Korea is in a period of mourning. Memorial altars like this one have been set up across South Korea to allow the public to pay their condolences to the victims of the plane crash. Outside Seoul City Hall, people, young and old, lined up. Some were employees of nearby offices, while others, including tourists, came here just to pay their respects.
I was just walking around and I saw this, and I Google Translate this place because I cannot read that, and I just saw it was for the crash, so I decided to go on the line and just pay tribute to the people died. I saw the video, horrific video, and I just felt like glad for all the safe landing I had.
사고 소식을 듣고 너무 마음이 아팠는데. 제가 이렇게 하는 거 말고는 그 마음을 전달할 방법이 없을 것 같아서 이렇게라도 유가족분들의 아픔에 공감하고 있다라는 걸 보여드리고 싶었어요.
The official mourning period ends on Saturday, but it could take several more days before all the bereaved families receive the remains of their loved ones. Many are still waiting for answers at Muan Airport, where the police carried out search and seizure operations on Thursday as part of investigations. Jeju Air was carrying 181 people from Bangkok to Muan when it issued a Mayday call. It landed on its belly before slamming into a wall, killing everyone on board except 2 flight attendants. Acting President Choi Sang-mok held a meeting on Thursday morning ordering immediate action if there are any issues with the aircraft model.
정부는 지난 30일부터 이번 사고와 동일 기종을 운영하는 6개 항공사 101대에 대한 특별안전 점검을 실시하고 있습니다. 해당 기종에 대한 국민들의 우려가 큰 만큼 국토부 등 관계기관에서는 운항, 정비, 교육훈련 등에 대해 철저하게 끝까지 점검해 주시기 바랍니다. 점검 결과 문제점이 발견되면 즉각 시정 조치해 주시기 바랍니다.
Aviation experts have questioned why there was a wall installed at the runway, as South Korean and U.S. investigators worked together to find the cause of the accident. Both black boxes have been found, and investigators have secured audio files from the voice recorder. Lim Yeon-suk, CNA, Seoul.
Meantime, South Korea's acting president, Choi Sang-mok, has ordered immediate action to provide emergency living expenses to the victims' families. The government has put in place support measures for the bereaved families, including reimbursing individuals who have taken personal leave from work to recover the bodies of their loved ones. And there are also plans to help local governments in swiftly releasing emergency living expenses to families facing financial difficulties during the recovery process. Mr. Choi says they will continue supporting the bereaved families even after the funeral procedures are completed. Now, coming up on East Asia tonight, political troubles in South Korea and the specter of higher tariffs weighing down the country's economic outlook. And Beijing adds 28 U.S. entities to its export control list as Washington's new tech restrictions on Chinese companies take effect.
This January, it's the rise of a new dawn filled with positivity, hope and inspiration. Behind the walls of this century-old palace-like mansion in Singapore lie secrets and legacies unknown to many. Unveil the mysteries of this time-worn treasure. Karakul Mahal, a silent witness. Once teetering on the edge of extinction, leopard sharks are returning to Indonesia's wild waters. Join marine biologist Nesha Achida and her team as she races against time to preserve the delicate balance of marine life in Rewilding Sharks. How do you get teenagers off their phones? Can they really cut down on their screen time? CNA puts 5 teams to the test. See what happens in No Screen, No Life? This January on CNA. Next time on Japan Hour.
47都道府県の隠れた名品利根川大花火大会
10年前が3000発の花火でした。それから2万3000発まで5年で大きくしてというところでやります。
日が落ち花火大会が始まりました。大盤振る舞いの3万発
もう最高です。
Japan Hour, Saturday on CNA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation. MUFG, committed to empowering a brighter future. Zip Air, winter fares are now available. And IHI. A multi-million-dollar crime that sent shockwaves across Asia.
If Pan Am goes down, we're looking at a total collapse of the Singapore economic system.
A 100-year-old mysterious mansion and its inhabitants.
There's something magical about Karakul Mahal where every phase of its story is different and interesting.
And the untold stories behind the world's busiest land crossing.
It's safe for relief. They're likely going to be blowing up the causeway.
History Unveiled, a trilogy of docudramas revealing hidden stories in the history of the region. Immerse yourself in additional content, a never-before-seen 3D interactive fly-through of the mansion, animated videos, behind the scenes and more. Visit cna.asia/history-unveiled now.
Hello again, good to have you back on East Asia tonight. Let's get some updates from the business world with Roland Lim as markets get back into action after the holidays. And Roland, it seems like markets in the region started 2025 on a cautious note. So what are some of the main concerns?
Well, there's worries about U.S. interest rates, U.S. tariffs, and China's lingering economy, all concerns. But traders have also been on edge as U.S.-China tensions come charging into the new year. And that's as a rule targeting American investments on key Chinese technology takes effect today. The Biden administration set the restrictions to supplement other measures, including export curbs aimed at slowing down China's tech ambitions. The new rules cover certain investments in high-tech sectors, including semiconductors, quantum technology, and artificial intelligence. The Treasury Department says these investments also include intangible benefits such as access to the U.S. talent pool and should not be used to indirectly help China's military advancements. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has said that the country strongly rejects the curbs and filed a diplomatic complaint with the U.S. Meantime, China has added 28 U.S. companies on its export control list, citing the need to, quote, safeguard national security and interests. The list includes major defense and aerospace firms such as General Dynamics, Boeing Defense, Space and Security, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon Missiles and Defense. Now, starting Thursday, China will also ban the export of dual-use items to these companies, according to the country's Ministry of Commerce. The ministry outlined that these actions are based on China's export control laws and regulations. Any ongoing export activities with these 28 entities must be halted immediately, with any necessary exports requiring prior approval from the ministry. Now, the move signals rising tensions between China and the U.S. as trade and national security concerns continue to shape relations. U.S.-China trade tensions clearly having an impact on investor sentiment. Chinese and Hong Kong markets got off to a poor start for the year. The Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong fell 2.3% today, banking counters leading the losers. Financial and tech shares led the Shanghai Composite and the Shenzhen Component lower. The Shenzhen Component was the bigger loser by more than 3%. The Chinese currency is at its weakest against the dollar in 14 months. The onshore yuan, that's the CNH, fell past 7.3 for the first time since November of 2023. The renminbi has been trading a whisker below 7.3 per dollar over the past 2 weeks, and that's a level seen by some in the market as a major threshold. Back in 2024, it had lost some 2.8% in value against the greenback, and that's its third straight year of losses. Investors are also weighing data out of China today, which came in weaker than expected. The Caixin manufacturing PMI was at 50.5 for December, missing a Reuters estimate of 51.7. The PMI had come in at 51.5 for November and 50.3 in October. The official PMI came in at 50.1 and also missed expectations. The data echoed an official survey released yesterday showing that manufacturing activity expanded modestly. The readings reinforce calls for more stimulus to spur growth this year, as Donald Trump will soon take office and likely intensify U.S.-China trade tensions. The South Korean government has slashed its growth forecast for the country as it accounts for the fallout from the political chaos sparked by President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law order. South Korea's finance ministry now expects GDP to expand 1.8% this year, and that's down from the 2.2% growth it projected back in July. Now, that growth rate would be slower than the estimated 2.1% GDP growth for the whole of 2024. The ministry said that the ongoing political turmoil and growing global uncertainties are key risks to the country's growth. The leadership vacuum left by the short-lived martial law declaration posed additional pressures on South Korea's economy, which was already reeling from slowing growth and fears of an impending U.S.-China trade war. Given the heightened uncertainty, South Korea's central bank governor also said Thursday the pace of monetary policy easing would be flexible this year. He added that the continued rate cuts would be a source of anxiety to the economy. The Bank of Korea is due to make its next interest rate decision this month, and it comes against the backdrop of the country's worst political turmoil in decades, which has already sent the Korean won to its lowest level since 2009. Let's check in on investors' reaction in Seoul. The Korean won is currently stronger against the greenback by 0.8%, 1,664 to the dollar. The Kospi, meanwhile, ending the first trading day of 2025 flat as investors gauged mixed economic data amid political turmoil. Alibaba has agreed to sell its majority stake in a Chinese hypermarket operator in a deal worth $1.6 billion. The move is part of the company's efforts to focus on its core e-commerce business. Alibaba will sell its 78.7% stake in Hong Kong-listed Sun Art Retail to Chinese private equity firm DCP Capital Partners. Now, it paid $3.6 billion for a controlling stake in Sun Art back in 2020, hoping to integrate digital tools into Sun Art's extensive hypermarket network in the country. Alibaba is expected to book a $1.8 billion loss from the deal. Turning to market reaction, shares of both Alibaba and Sun Art ended the day in the red during trading in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, but Sun Art's shares have jumped some 85% in Hong Kong this past year alone. This is not the first major divestment for Alibaba. Last month, the company announced the sale of its stake in Chinese department store chain In Time for $1.02 billion, a move expected to incur over $1 billion in losses. Chinese electric vehicle sales rose significantly in December, fueled by government trade-in programs and strong demand. Now, this surge comes as the country's domestic EV makers continue to expand both locally and internationally. Leading the charge, BYD sold over 514,000 vehicles in December, marking its third consecutive month of sales, surpassing 500,000 vehicles. Now, for the year, BYD sales grew by 41%, reaching more than 4 million vehicles, boosted by a significant increase in overseas sales. Local competitors, I should say, also saw impressive gains. Li Auto set a record of more than 58,000 vehicles sold, while NIO saw a 73% increase. Now, XPeng reported its best ever December sales, up 82%, with nearly 37,000 units sold. New entrants Xiaomi also delivered more than 25,000 units, and Tesla, that's a key player in the Chinese market, has yet to release its December sales figures. The strong sales were driven by government incentives encouraging consumers to trade in older models, as well as discounts offered by manufacturers to meet annual targets. However, analysts caution that the first quarter of 2025 could face challenges, such as the potential for a price war and the impact of front-loading sales in December. And that'll do it for Business News. It's Ellie.
Thanks so very much, Roland. Well, we're going to go for a short break now, but coming up next on East Asia tonight, Philippine lawmakers expressing concerns over a potential comeback of offshore gaming operations, also known as POGOs, despite a nationwide ban coming into effect. And we'll have an expert weigh in on the challenges of the industry crackdown, as well as the high-profile investigation of Alice Guo, who's accused of links with China.
Karikal Mahal was named after his hometown, Karikal. Mahal is in palace.
It was built for entertaining the good and the great of Singapore at that time.
They knew this castle was being built out in Katong, and so obviously a king lives in a castle, and so you call him the Cattle King. If there's any kind of genius underlying this, was his ability to recognize that opportunity and then create a pathway for himself to dominate.
Aspirations and attitudes of Singaporeans are changing the nation that raised them.
Passionate Singaporeans living out their very ambitious dreams.
We're looking to write a story of greatness, of extraordinary people impacting communities.
I guess a part of me wanted to connect even deeper with the people.
There's no point playing it safe. Safe will always be forgotten.
If we as Singaporeans are able to have a satellite that we can truly say was conceived, designed, engineered and built in Singapore, wow, how wonderful would it be?
This is Singapore, we don't give up.
This is East Asia Tonight, right here in CNA. Investigators likely to proceed with an arrest warrant against impeached President Yoon Song-yeol as early as today. He has vowed to fight to the very end amid ongoing protests for and against him. Also in South Korea, the head of Jeju Air is banned from leaving the country as authorities raid the airline's offices as part of their probe into Sunday's fatal crash. And U.S. officials, according to a report, say that Chinese government hackers targeted a sensitive office overseeing economic sanctions, claims that Beijing earlier dismissed as baseless. Well, an update now on the U.S. Treasury hacking. A Washington Post report citing unnamed U.S. officials say that Chinese government hackers have breached the sanctions office in the department. Earlier reports did not specify the hackers' targets. Well, the breaches were said to have taken place in the Office of Foreign Assets Control and the Office of Financial Research. Well, there are concerns that the breach of the latter could lead to the disclosure of information on discussions linked to government sanctions, including the identities of potential targets for sanctions and the evidence collected against the entities. Now, a source quoted by Washington Post said that such data would be a top area of interest for the Chinese government. The U.S. Treasury said that the hack is being investigated as a major cybersecurity incident and that there is no evidence suggesting that the hackers still have access to Treasury systems. Beijing has earlier rejected those claims.
对于此类缺乏证据的无端指控，我们已经多次表明了立场。中方一贯反对各种形式的黑客攻击，我们更反对出于政治目的散布针对中国的虚假信息。
Philippine police are warning of, quote, potential national security implications after they recovered a submarine drone suspected to be of Chinese origin in waters off central Philippines. Well, 3 fishermen discovered the yellow drone marked HY119 on Monday off the coast of San Pascual in Masbate province. It was found floating at sea before it was turned over to authorities on Tuesday. Police say that based on open-source research, HY119 refers to a Chinese underwater navigation and communication system. They added that the device has an antenna and a so-called eye that can be used for monitoring and reconnaissance. Investigations are underway to determine how long the drone stayed in Philippine territorial waters before it was discovered. The Philippines and China have clashed over maritime rights in the South China Sea for years now. China claims almost the entire sea, despite an international ruling that its assertion has no legal basis. And staying in the Philippines, the country's ban on offshore gaming operations, dubbed POGOs, has come into effect with the new year, following President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s crackdown announcement in July. Meantime, a high-profile investigation continues into an ex-small-town mayor, Alice Guo, who's been accused of criminal links to China. CNA's Bueno Bernal talks to lawmakers for the latest on this bizarre case.
The first crimes linked to Philippine offshore gaming operators, or POGOs, that were uncovered were prostitution and human trafficking. Over time, investigations exposed a string of other offenses. Scamming operations, kidnapping activities, money laundering, and even allegations of espionage emerged. No stone left unturned, as lawmakers would say. Lawmakers are concerned about the potential resurgence of POGOs despite President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s executive order to ban it. They argue a law is needed to widen the scope of the ban to include POGOs licensed by all government agencies.
And making sure that everything, all the different types of POGOs, regardless of who issued the license, will be captured in the law.
Philippine Senate investigations, which gripped the nation for months, also cast a spotlight on dismissed small-town mayor and alleged Chinese spy Alice Guo. Her mayoral post is now underpinned by questions on her Filipino identity. With a faked birth certificate, she managed to co-own a firm from which a crime-ridden POGO rented land. She's now charged with graft money laundering and human trafficking, among others.
She's not Filipino, she's Chinese. And now there's allegations that she's even a spy, So imagine her influencing and befriending decision makers in the military and also in the police. And that went undetected.
Alice Guo also managed to evade arrests as she escaped the country. Her case exposed a potential web of corruption in both the country's civil registry and immigration. Lawmakers now seek to pass laws that target these vulnerabilities.
One is to sanction certain behavior or certain actions that may lead to malign influence or foreign interference. The second is create the ecosystem for deterrence to prevent potential actions that will prosper into actual malign influence or foreign interference.
In a recent raid on a POGO hub in northern Philippines, workers I spoke with expressed uncertainty about their futures approaching the holiday season, possibly without year-end bonuses. As the Philippines winds down POGOs, experts said it would still need to tackle underlying systemic issues like corruption and limited job prospects that allowed crime-ridden POGOs to thrive. Juan Bernal, CNA, Metro Manila.
And for more insights into Philippines' POGO ban, let's bring in Joseph Velasco, Associate Professor, Department of Political Science and Development Studies at De La Salle University. Well, thanks for joining us this evening, Dr. Velasco. So let's just talk about Philippines' ban on POGO that has taken effect. How do you think that the government will ensure that these operations don't simply go underground?
So in July last year, President Marcos Jr., in his State of the Nation address, declared that he will ban POGOs. And he also issued Executive Number 74, which officially formalized the ban. And all of these POGOs must cease to operate by December 31, 2024. And you are right, there's a risk that they might go underground. But I think law enforcement authorities have been very prudent about ensuring that these operations are ceased before it proliferates further.
Well, when you say prudent that these operations are ceased, can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
For the past few months, since the announcement that all POGOs will be banned, the Philippine law enforcement authorities have been conducting raids in these offshore gaming operations and closing down these the operations of these establishments.
Right. So, Dr. Velasco, I want to talk about Alice Guo, this high-profile investigation who's been accused of links with China. I mean, it has certainly raised concerns about foreign interference in the Philippines, for instance. Do you think these spy allegations are credible?
I think we must decouple the idea that Alice Guo is a spy at this point. To use the word of Senator Gatchalian, there are allegations, but none is proven at this point. What is quite apparent is her involvement with POGO-related activities, but to accuse her of being a spy at this point, I think it's premature. There is no proof yet, or there is no tangible evidence that she has conducted espionage in the country.
Right. So no tangible evidence that Alice Guo is a spy, but I mean, her case has certainly blown the lid off some disturbing allegations of corruption, not just in the POGO industry, though, but in the very fabric of the Philippine state. What do you think, needs to be done so that Filipinos are confident of their officials, that they're not working for the highest bidder?
I think the problem with the situation of Alice Guo is the lack of regulation or the enforcement of these regulations when it comes to allowing individuals to run for public office. To review her document, particularly her birth certificate, it was registered late. It was registered at the time, if I'm not mistaken, that she's 19 years old. So that is actually a red flag when it comes to allowing individuals to run for public office, and government agencies should conduct due diligence when it comes to these individuals.
Now, when it comes to how some Filipinos view the ethnic Chinese community, there have been phrases that describe them, right? That they are economically dominant, they are politically disloyal, culturally different, to some extent. Do you think that, such stereotypes still resonates today? And how do you think that is shaping a conversation around issues like POGOs and Chinese influence in the Philippines?
I think imaginary links have been made between China as a state, POGOs, and Chinese Filipinos. And these entities, each with their own distinct interests, allegiances, should be treated separately rather than a single amorphous block. And to some extent, the Philippines has a very ambivalent and to some extent antagonistic relationship with the ethnic Chinese population in the Philippines. Because you're right, they're viewed as economically dominant, politically loyal, and culturally different. And one of the possible reasons for that is that there is a significant number of Philippines' wealthiest family, particularly in the business sector, which are of Chinese descent. And their economic success has occasionally led to resentment and accusations of monopolizing opportunities in general.
Yeah, certainly, not just in the Philippines, but in other countries as well. I want to talk about this Foreign Interference Act, or rather it's been proposed, right? I mean, that it aims to prevent foreign influence in Philippine politics, for instance. How do you think that such a law can be effective in preventing foreign interference without, at the same time, stifling actual legitimate international cooperation?
I think at the heart of the thing that they are proposing, it's very good and it's very effective. It's very timely, especially for democracy, in light of elections and foreign interference. The only problem is when it is implemented and how it is implemented, which does not stifle legitimate conversations about certain issues related to politics. And I think it's not just simply a legal issue or a policy issue, but it also should include social media, because a lot of individuals now take their news or information not from traditional outlets, but from social media. So I think these social media companies should also be included in the conversation on how to ensure that there is fair discourse within that realm.
Yeah, it's been great chatting with you. Thanks so much for your insights. Joseph Velasco from De La Salle University in Manila. Time now for another short break, but coming up next on East Asia tonight. Japan's Emperor Naruhito and his family greet thousands of New Year well-wishers at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. And China says that 2024 was the hottest year since the records began more than 6 decades ago.
With the uncertainties of the financial world, where does our economy truly stand? Keep up to date with the latest market trends and get the in-depth analysis that you need to understand the forces driving the global economies. Kickstart your day with an informed view of the business world. Asia Business on Asia First, weekdays on CNA. Brought to you by Standard Chartered Priority Banking.
I heard we have a new member of the family. Oh, she's so cute. Leopard shark is quite a charismatic shark and not a toothy sharky shark. it's easy to fall in love.
If you were to go back into the 1990s, they were quite abundant. But something happened in the late 90s.
Terus pernah Bapak mancing hiu kan tidak?
Bapak juga pelaku potasium di laut.
They seem to have become kind of a high, trendy item in the shark fin trade.
If it becomes extinct, there's not much else that looks like it in the ecosystem. The overall goal for the next 5 to 10 years is to release 500 sharks.
But it's very important for us to be able to show that these animals are actually adapting to their new environment, feeding and thriving.
You're watching East Asia Tonight. Japan's Emperor Naruhito and his family members greeted well-wishers at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo this morning. Well, it's the first time he has done so in 2 years, with the last one cancelled due to the Noto Peninsula earthquake. Cheers of banzai erupted as the imperial family appeared. Banzai meaning long live, while others waved paper Japanese flags. Well, among those also on the balcony was Emperor Emeritus Akihito, who abdicated the throne back in 2019 over age and declining health.
新年おめでとうございます。皆さんとこうして新年を一緒に祝うことを嬉しく思います。その一方で、昨年の元日に発生した能登半島地震や各地で起こった大雨の災害などにより、未だにご苦労の多い生活をされている多くの方々の身を案じています。いろいろと大変なこともあるかと思いますが、本年が皆さんにとって安らかで良い年となるよう願っております。
Well, the country on Wednesday marked the one-year anniversary since the powerful tremor devastated communities in the remote Noto Peninsula in central Japan. More than 500 people died, and tens of thousands of others were displaced from their homes. China, meanwhile, marked its hottest year in 2024 since records began some 6 decades ago. Chinese weather officials say the average temperature last year was nearly 11 degrees Celsius. Well, that's more than 1 degree higher than the historical average. China logged its warmest month ever in July last year, as well as the hottest August and warmest autumn on record. Well, the sweltering heat has an adverse impact on agriculture in regions including the rice-producing south. China is researching into adapting staple crops to heat so as to safeguard its food security and yields. In its year-end message, the United Nations warned that 2024 is expected to be the warmest year ever recorded globally. Rising heat in the atmosphere and seas, driven largely by the burning of fossil fuels, has brought about more intense downpours and storms. For the world's second-largest economy, the warmer weather has also led to spikes in power consumption. China, with its eyes firmly on the impact of climate change, is steadily moving to reduce its power generation carbon footprint, with a significant portion of it still coming from the highly polluting coal. Well, yesterday it added a new nuclear power plant unit to the energy mix, following a week-long demonstration run. The 1,000-megawatt Hualong 1 reactor took a short 5 years to build. It's one of the 6 that the Zhangzhou site in Fujian province is designed for. While 3 other units are under construction. Once fully loaded, the site is expected to meet the demands of 6 million people, helping to power the local economy and beyond. And this also builds on China's goal to be carbon neutral by 2060. Early retirement is a dream for many, and in China, some young city dwellers are getting to live out their dream retirement lifestyle a few decades early. Well, CNA's Money Mind visits one such youth retirement village where you'll find hardly anyone above the age of 40.
26-year-old Qian Yu likes the retirement lifestyle so much, she's come to this youth retirement village 3 times. This time, she's here as a volunteer, willing to do chores in return for room and board. She wanted a break from her full-time job at a guest house in Beijing. So she made the 3-hour drive from Beijing to the Guanye Youth Retirement Village, nestled in the countryside near Yesanpo National Park in Hebei Province.
我觉得不能完全画等号吧，我觉得就是怎么说，可以接受短暂的躺平，因为每个人都需要休息嘛，也都需要给自己留有一些独处的空间。但是我们终究会在你行动的过程当中越来越清晰，有一个新的出发点。
Slowing down and opting out of the rat race, even temporarily, are new forms of 躺平 or lying flat. That's a Chinese phrase describing young people pushing back against social norms to overachieve. Qian Yu is not alone. These young people in China have also checked out of the city and checked into the youth retirement village.
其实我感觉青年和养老它并不是一个反义词，它不是相矛盾的。我们说养老，它可能只是一个比较开玩笑的一种说法。我们更多的可能就是想来这儿放松，然后寻找一下自己的新方向。我来这儿的目的也不是想真正的想养老退休，还是想有一个地方能放松自己，然后找到一个。 不管是职业啊，还是人生的一个新目标，
我想回归一下生活，我想，真正的放松一下自己，听听自己内心的声音，然后来到这里，也是因为这可能就是我现在目前向往的一个生活，能让自己休息的一个方式。我打算可能在这里，半年，给自己半年时间调整一下自己。长时间的工作让我觉得我很麻木。 让我觉得我失去了对生活的一个热情以及一个内容创作的初心。
Xiaofei and Erqiu are both residents at the Guanye Youth Retirement Village.
最开始这叫青年养老村呢，我们感觉就是想给大家提供一个类似养老院那样很平静的生活提供一些一日三餐，给他一个很舒适的环境。
Unlike a nursing home, these youth retirement villages do not provide medical care. Instead, these rural retreats offer young people an escape from the stresses of their jobs in the big city.
我来这里是因为我自己的职业的就业方向对我来说我有点迷茫，然后不知道该怎么发展我这个职业的前景了。然后我想找一个地方好好的思考一下我这个职业，或者我想换一个行业也可以。
Guanye Youth Retirement Village was established in 2017. It offers more than 240 beds across 3 dormitory buildings and 10 courtyards. Prices start from 138 renminbi or $19 per day, and about 3,600 renminbi or $500 for a month. For that price, young people get the chance to live out a retirement lifestyle.
我们马上呢就要到达我们的长岭步道，这是我们的村民和喜欢我们村子的人一起出力出钱，然后亲自建的。哇
From morning walks to arts and crafts sessions.
有的时候我们的停留驻足和休息都是为了更好的一个出发。
And leisurely games of mahjong. Residents are a mix of short-term visitors, remote workers, and weekend guests. Most of them stay for 1 to 2 weeks on average.
These spaces provide a kind of stress-free ability and opportunity to socialize with people who are also articulating values that are actually very common today about the need for finding your own passions and interests. Although these values are very accepted among young people in China today, they still seem very new or even rebellious because there are often pressures from parents or even from peers to focus on your career, on making money.
Besides offering a range of activities for a retirement lifestyle, there are opportunities for self-improvement that can help advance the careers of young professionals.
在我们这些活动当中呢，有一个激昂的一个职业规划就是像那些聊天局这样的，确实也会在不同问题分析当中，我们会再根据不同的问题分析一些他现状的这些困惑，所以说总之来讲，大家需求得到的东西是不一样的，但是总有一个大的方向，就是能让大家静下心来敞开心扉，没有顾忌那么多的去聊聊天，不用背负那么很大的压力。
When they do graduate from university, they start trying to figure out who they are, what is their place in a major city like Beijing or Shanghai. This is when they feel very acutely that social status is not only about wealth. They need to have their own interests, hobbies, cultural knowledge, what's sometimes referred to as cultural capital, that will then gain them recognition from their peers and which has value in many industries, whether that is in digital marketing or the media, or even just in the way that you socialize with colleagues in your industry.
For Qian Yu, her retirement time in the countryside is a time to reset and recharge.
从一些身体上，可能有些人之前上班会，我去划掉好几次的闹钟，但是在这儿有一些人他就会自己的就是自己也觉得很神奇。我今天早起，然后甚至我跟大家一起去做了有氧运动，走了长岭步道，然后一起去做了8段锦。然后心理上的话，就是我觉得不是说很某一刻的一下子的治愈，而是他在这里的一针又一针的这样的，然后去让他慢慢的又点燃起了他心里本有的那个火苗。
You can catch more of other Money Mind episodes on CNA.Asia, MeWatch, and YouTube. And that wraps up East Asia Tonight this Thursday. Don't forget your headlines anytime at CNA.Asia. Thanks for watching.